Today I'd like to talk about tune-up races when preparing for a marathon and why you should look at scheduling 2 of them before your next race. So a tune-up race is a race that's shorter in distance than the season's goal you're training for. When you're training for a marathon, we would typically look at races like the half marathon or the 10K as great tune-up races for the marathon. And we would want to schedule 2 of them strategically along the course of your marathon training journey. So say that your marathon training cycle is 18 weeks long. With the marathon at the end of that, we would want to work backwards to figure out when your tune-up races should be. So typically I recommend that you'll look for a half marathon to run 4 to 8 weeks before your season's ending full marathon. And then about 4 weeks before that half marathon, you'll want to look for another tune-up race. This would actually be your first one in the season. And that would be a 10K or a 5-miler or a distance like that you would do 4 weeks before that half marathon. Now the purpose of these tune-up races, really there's 2. The first one is it gives you the opportunity to practice what racing is like before you get to your most important season's ending marathon. When you train for months on end for one particular day, it's so important to practice a couple of times before you get to that big day. There's a lot that goes into running a race on race day, and even if you've been running for years, getting in regular practice every few months is helpful to keep all these processes as fluid and natural as you can. So you really don't need to think too much about how to prepare the night before, how to get set up in the morning, get to the event, what things to bring with you, how to go through your warm-up, how to kind of navigate through the race day commotion the morning of, making sure you're landing at the starting line at the right time, going through all the mental motions of getting ready for that race, making sure your pacing as you start the race is on point. By practicing those activities twice before you get to your marathon, you're setting yourself up for success, because come marathon race day, all those new experiences that are unique to race day will not be so new to you anymore. The other reason is that by doing a tune-up race, you really get a strong check-in on how your fitness is progressing over the course of your training and what things, if any, you need to work on in the coming months before your goal season marathon. So when you go into a tune-up race, the great thing about it is a low-pressure environment. For numerous reasons, you're not generally in your mind thinking that this is going to be like your best race ever. You're generally going into it not fully tapered. There's some fatigue coming into it. Mentally, you have typically not worked up this tune-up race as being the most important race of your season. It's a low-pressure environment in the midst of training that allows you to do your best and kind of see where your fitness is at. Now, workouts are great, but workouts are not really a test of your fitness. The point of a workout is to make you fitter. So it's only really in races that you want to be giving close to 100% or 100%. And it's only really in races where it matters what your finishing time ends up being. So there's 2 different ways to race a tune-up race. The first one would be to run it to the best of your ability, knowing that you may be going into it slightly tired from training, but you're still going to do your best. And then you take your finishing race time, and you can extrapolate that using numerous calculators that are available online to figure out what time you could run in your next race. So when you run your 10K, you take that time, you extrapolate it, and you say, okay, great. This 10K, I can translate this to X in the half marathon. Now I know when I go to my next tune-up race in the half marathon what a goal pace for me would be. When you run your half marathon, you do the same. If you ran that half marathon all out, you say, okay, great, I now know what my fitness is. I have 4 to 8 weeks to improve on that or maintain. And based on my half marathon performance, assuming it went well and you had a good race, this is what I can expect to run at my full marathon. Now, that information is super helpful because it lets you know if the goals in terms of time and pacing that you've set for yourself in your season's ending marathon are realistic or not. It lets you know if you're ahead of pace, if you're faster than the goals you've set out for yourself, and you simply need to work on endurance to run the marathon, or if maybe your goals are a little much of a stretch, if the jump from what you just did in your tune-up race is too far to the goals that you set for your full marathon, or if it's just a little gap in time that you need to try to fill, you know you can work on that in the coming month or two. So that's if you run a tune-up race all out to the best of your ability. The other way to run it is as a very strong workout. Now, running a race all out is an incredible workout. Arguably the best workout you could do would be to run a race all out. However, the downside of doing an all-out race is the amount of recovery afterwards is significantly higher than the amount of recovery after a standard workout. Occasionally, people who race too often actually struggle with their training because they're going through so much recovery and then racing hard and then recovering and then racing hard that it's actually kind of hard to grow and advance and improve as a runner when you're constantly going through this cycle of racing, having to recover, tapering for the next race, having to recover, and so on. So sometimes racing all out can slow down the progress that you're making over the course of your training. Other times it makes sense. And that's where talking with a coach or knowing yourself really well and how long it takes you to truly recover from workouts can be helpful. But if you decide that it's not best for you to run the race all out, the other option would be to run it as a really strong workout. So let's talk about the half marathon. One of the best workouts you can do in preparation for a full marathon is to go run that half marathon at your marathon pace. If you can do 13 miles in training at your full marathon pace, and you're doing it in an environment that's a supported long run, you have aid stations, you have the energy of the other runners, of spectators of the race day. If you can do that 13 miles at marathon pace in a half marathon, and you add on warm up, cool down, likely it could be a 16 to 18 to 20 mile day, you can feel very confident that in a month or so after that race, when you're fully tapered, you'll be able to go the full 26 miles at half marathon pace. So taking your half marathon as a workout can be a very good way to prepare for the full marathon if you decide to not race it all out. Perhaps you signed up for a half marathon where conditions are not going to be such to really race it all out and get the time you're looking for. This could be a challenging hilly course. It could be a summer race where the weather you expect is going to be poor. Situations like that are great opportunities to consider doing your tune-up race as a marathon pace-based workout. Now, either way you choose to go about doing this, when you do your 2 tune-up races before your full marathon, you should gain tons of confidence in your ability to show up, to keep it together, to stay mentally strong, to run the race, to pace yourself, to know what to do in terms of clothing to wear, shoes to wear, fueling to take, paces to run, how to handle your nerves. All those things you get to practice in a tune-up race in a way that you really don't get to practice them in just a typical workout environment. So I'd highly encourage you to, before every marathon that you're training for, look for these 2 tune-up races. Again, 4 to 8 weeks before your full marathon is when you would want to run a half. And then about a month before that is when you would want to run a 10K. My name is Coach Chris Knighton. You can follow along with what I'm doing at KnightonRuns.com or find me on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at KnightonRuns. Love to hear what tune-up races you're signed up for your next marathon and how you're going about running them. That's all I got for you today, and I hope you have a great day.